look up one thing. Give me 1 second here. We're getting there. I guess we got a couple minutes. Miranda?
Yes.
You can clarify that Karen Blakemore has applied for the Planning Commission, but she's not been approved yet. Is that correct?
Correct. She'll go before the board on the consent agenda next week.
Okay, great.
And I missed who was on the phone. I think it was Jim and Linda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Jim Reese.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Linda.
Hi.
While we're waiting, I wanted to tell Cynthia that I thought you did a really great job on the analysis for this.
Aw, thanks. Appreciate that. I'm really
Laid it
dialed
out.
them in.
It laid it out really well, and I think that's just a testament to how good you are at your job. So,
Oh, shucks.
makes our job easier. All they have to do is read it.
I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you. I try to put a lot of energy into those aims and shake out everything I can and think about all the impacts so that we can lay it out for you guys to make your best decisions, or at least to feel like you can make those decisions with information. So I think the applicants, will need to provide a good bit of information here tonight for you guys to, make your determination, but we'll get there. And I do believe that we have everybody tonight. Steph Herring is doing the solo parenting tonight. So she is calling in, and she may need to duck off a little bit early, get the kids to bed and stuff like that, but she had already communicated that, so I was kind of planning for that. And it looks like everybody else except potentially Julie and Taylor, who I already reached out, as you saw, and said you can attend the first part of the meeting or not, and then duck off for the action item.
It might be good to remind people that if you're not talking, if you can mute yourself, it really helps with the background noise.
It does. In fact, it helps so much I sometimes forget to unmute myself, and I'm talking and Miranda reminds me no one can hear me.
And one thing, I guess, to your point, Jim, is that if you're calling in from a phone, you have to mute yourself, because if I mute you, you then can't talk.
Good point.
What'd you say?
That I have the ability, Linda, to mute people in the participants, but if I mute anyone who calls in, then when you start speaking, we won't be able to hear you. So you'll want to just mute yourself on your phone.
All right.
So turn the party down at your house, Linda.
I will do that in a minute. I'll tell everyone to cool it.
Blow out. We're being serious. Miranda, do we have Chris? Do we have him calling in? I just don't see him on the list.
You're not going to see him on your list because he's on the desktop phone. So he
Superb.
is me in this participant panel.
Okay, so from my seeing the names of everyone who's calling, and we can do the official roll call, but I just want to say I've got Roger, I've got Billy, I've got Steve, I've got Linda, I've got Stephanie, I've got Chris, and I've got Jim. So I believe we have everyone who is going to attend from us if Julian wasn't going to duck in, but he may decide that he's not going to. So we do have quorum, and we do have everyone I was anticipating. So
Were you anticipating the applicants at the beginning, or do you think they'll be calling in later?
I'm sorry.
Were you expecting the applicants to be calling in right now or later?
I was expecting the applicants to be calling in.
I don't know if you want to reach out. I can't call them because I'm on the phone with Chris.
Yeah, I'll send them an email. It's really strange. That's a good point. Okay, let me just take the audio from our here.
So Cynthia, yeah, we can definitely start after you send them an email. And I can, if you just CC me on that, I can help monitor it.
Okay, I'm gonna send him this email and just say, reach out to Miranda if you have any issues. Please log in now and reach out to Miranda at Comcast.
So Cynthia, it looks like maybe the new packet you uploaded doesn't have the meeting access information.
Huh.
So I'm gonna go in and update that.
Okay. I just sent this to them. And if you have the ability to send them the meeting login link, that would probably be helpful if they don't have it. Oh, there's Dennis. Hi, Dennis. Maybe he doesn't make them.
No, he doesn't have audio at the moment.
Okay. Dennis, you can call in your audio by phone or you can do it through your computer. There he is. There they are.
Holy cow. So Stephanie, excuse
Say I told you, Roger.
I was just seeing if you could catch that. You think we'll call the meeting to order?
Okay. Planning Commission meeting is called to order on May 27, 2020 at 7:05 p.m. Roll call. Chair Cornell.
Chair.
Vice Chair Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Giblin. Commissioner Giblin.
Here we go. You just mute on.
Billy?
Now his mute's on again.
Uh-huh. Billy, can you hear us? Okay, I'm going to move on and we'll come back to you. Commissioner Glasser? Here. Commissioner Herring? Here. Commissioner Perret?
Here.
Awesome, I can hear that. Commissioner Reese?
Present.
And we're going back to Commissioner Giblin.
You still got it. I got a quorum.
We have a quorum. Billy, if you're having some audio problems, please try to reach out to us because we're not able to hear you. but I see that you're calling in, so I'm going to mark you down as present. So we do have a quorum. Okay, and Planning Commissioner Liaison Julian Taylor is not present tonight and wouldn't be able to attend the action item of tonight, and would only be able to attend the roll call and the acceptance of the minutes in the staff report. So it looks like he did not call in.
I spoke to him earlier. He actually had some vacation, some time he wanted to spend, so I encouraged him that he need not come at all. So that's why he probably didn't check in.
Awesome.
It's a quasi-judicial hearing.
Awesome.
All
I
right.
do notice from the fire department, we have Rick Henriksen calling in too. So if there's any fire questions, we can certainly have him answer any of those questions himself. He's been trying to be present at these meetings to be able to do that.
Can you hear me now? This is Billy.
Yes.
Oh, yes, we
My
got you.
microphone was turned off on my computer. I didn't notice that.
Awesome.
Where's this over?
All right.
Hi, Billy.
Oh, okay.
Buddy.
All right, let's, good to have you, Billy.
Thanks, Roger.
Muted or not. But anyhow,
We're good.
so we have the roll call. Can we have the minutes for the April 22nd meeting?
Wiped out as of today.
Can we get a motion to approve the minutes from April 22nd?
Oh, yeah.
So,
I think the perspective is, I mean, it's bad.
Just over.
So I'm not going to be able to share my screen and monitor all the background noises. So
Like World War.
I'm hoping to shut the background noises off for a little bit, and then I can start sharing.
So for the folks who are calling in, please mute your mics if you're not talking, because the background noise definitely makes the stream a bit challenging, and then we also pick it up and we're not sure if you're speaking to us. Thank you.
Okay, we're on now. Okay. All right, so the first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from April 22nd. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes as written? So moved.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Chris Perret and Linda Glasser were your first two.
Jim Reed.
Okay. I heard Jim Reed first, and then I heard Linda Glasser.
That's good enough.
I'll take it. I'll take a motion in a second. And then the vote we'll do by roll call just to make sure that we have everybody. So I will start with commissioners. Commissioner Perret.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Herring.
She abstains.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I wasn't the last one. Abstain.
Okay, great. Commissioner Giblin.
Do I vote on this or do I abstain?
No, he abstained.
Abstain.
Okay. Commissioner Reese.
Yes.
Commissioner Glasser.
Yeah.
Vice Chair William.
Yes.
Chair Cornell.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very good. Next item on the agenda would be public comment. Is there anybody else from the public logged on that would like to speak, or do we have anybody there? Do you see?
And this would be for non-agenda items. So if you have something that is not on our agenda that you'd like to present to the Planning Commission, here is your opportunity now. You have 3 minutes if you would like to speak.
Yep, not part of the public hearing.
Anyone?
Correct. I'm trying to look, see who's MR.
I see a couple folks from Knotted Root. I see Bert Marcio and Christopher Klein, but they probably want to speak to the application as it borders their property. So unless they want to speak to to another topic, I would presume they're here for the preliminary PUD review.
Okay, so we'll move on and save the second part, the public comment, for the actual public hearing for the agenda action item. Okay, the information items are staff. Does Karen want to give the staff report?
Sure. I'm actually working on trying to share my screen so I can put the agenda up. So I'll just go briefly. There's a pretty big report in everybody's packets, and several of us have worked on many of these things. So if you have any questions for Miranda or me or Cynthia, you're welcome to ask them. The big news with the COVID pandemic and where we're at with that is the recent relaxing of some of the restrictions in the Safer at Home order, now allowing us to open up restaurants as long as they follow the order. And Miranda's been working very closely with them so they understand all the guidelines. We have our recovery and resiliency team working around the clock with businesses. I know Steve knows that, with the church. Trying to help everybody understand how they can still operate, whether it's nonprofits like churches or businesses or people who want to have a special event. She's assisting them in understanding how they can do that and still follow the order. We're also working on a communication initiative. We've been posting lots of information on the website and on Facebook, helping people understand more about not only the order, but also the resources that are available in town that they can connect with if they need relief from the pandemic. And we've been working with partner organizations like Center for People with Disabilities and the Peak to Peak HHS Alliance to get information out there so people know where they can find assistance. And the Peak to Peak Health and Human Service did work with Tungsten Village and did signups with them and had a great turnout. So we had a lot of local residents sign up to potentially live at Tungsten Village, which is still expected to open sometime in the fall. And we did have DDA stopgap funding available at about $100,000. And Miranda worked closely with the DDA to help them put a grant process in place. And we had around 50 applicants, and we'll be getting that money out to the businesses to offer them some relief. A lot of them have just struggled so much during the pandemic. So it would help them with things like rent or utilities and that kind of stuff. So I think, that's all I'll mention. But of course, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and ask and we'll try to answer. I am, though, now going to try to share my screen.
I just want to mention one other thing, is Miranda. In the packet, we did talk about Community Connect. So as many of you know, Cynthia enters in permitting through Community Corps, and it's pretty, it's a long, intensive process for her. And so we found a way to start working with contractors and applicants to be able to enter in their own permitting information. They have very limited capacity in terms of what they can see and what they can add, but it would also allow them to check in on the status of their permits, which ideally would just save Cynthia a ton of time. So we're really looking forward to bringing that to Nederland very soon, so people can be a little more involved in their permitting process.
Okay, so
for the larger stuff, they would still have to go through, a larger project. But we're really looking at, for like small one-stop building permits, if it's something simple like a water heater replacement that doesn't require anything. But that would help a lot for, taking some of. We're just super busy during these 6 months when people can build, so it gets pretty heavy on my end. So this will be one. Looking forward to it.
That's what I'm asking. Okay, you're on.
Okay, just a reminder too, I'm sure that Karen's staff, anything in the report, if you would follow up and just would email them to you. And also you could get answers that way, because this is very difficult to have these conversations like this tonight. So I encourage anybody, any questions, email staff. So then that would take us to the next point, would be the public hearing. And the action items, the consideration of preliminary planned unit development plus density increase pertaining to UMC section 1688 in a public hearing for Dennis, Bolong and Alan Mode. Someone have to tell me how that.
Yeah, that's
right.
Bouillon.
Bouillon. Okay. I had that in my soup the other day, didn't I? To create a 4 total units, 575 peak-to-peak highway. So it's a public hearing. Staff, your comments first.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is a preliminary planned unit development, and they would like to use the Nederland Municipal Code Section 16-88 to increase the density on the property. We'll get to that. This is at 575 North Peak to Peak Highway, as you noted, and this is for Dennis and Ellen Mode Bouillon, and they are present tonight, so they'll be able to speak. This was postponed from April 22nd. At this stage, just to clarify, with respect to a preliminary PUD, this is a one-stop at this point before the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission tonight will look at the application and decide, do they have enough information to be able to determine if they can say to the applicants, yes, this looks good, you should move forward toward your final. Do they not have enough information, or does it not meet code? So those are the determinations the Planning Commission will make. But this is not, just for those folks who are tuning in, this is not a decision tonight that will say, okay, from here on they're going to building. So just to clarify that, with preliminary planned unit developments, that is a process that goes from preliminary and then has to come back, and they have up to a year to come back unless they extend that period of time to do the final portion. So that's, there's more to come. So for those folks who have any concerns, there's more to come, but thank you for joining us, and you're certainly welcome to answer or ask any questions you may have when we open up the public comment portion. So this is for 575 North Peak to Peak. The property itself is 11,761 square feet total, and that would allow up to 5 units if you are able to double the density. The neighborhood commercial district is the only zone that allows the double density. So it is a unique zone, and it is a unique opportunity to be able to do that, recognizing that it is both as the name implies, neighborhood and commercial. So it often has a mix of those kind of things. This is purely for residential. They were not looking to do commercial downstairs or anything like that. They just wanted to do residential units here. So they would be looking at not totally maxing the density. They could have up to 5 units based on that 11,000 square feet, but they would like to do 4 units. They wanted to make sure they were in keeping with parking requirements and that they provided the required parking and open space and things like that. So they would like to do that. They have previous building experience in New Orleans. They were going to originally restore the existing building on the property, and determined ultimately in between the last meeting they were going to come to that it would just be easier to redevelop the property fully rather than try to use that existing building and have challenges with setbacks and the open space requirement that the density increase does require. So they would like to make 2 duplexes, and they would contain 3 bedrooms each. There is a 1-car garage that would be inside the unit, and then additional parking would be planned for the southeast corner and provided north of the structures in the western corner. It has access off of 4th Street, so that's how they would reach it. And I'm presuming that they are fronting these buildings toward 4th Street, as that existing building has been or is currently, because that would be their access. But they can speak to that. What they showed on their submitted site plan was 13 spaces were provided. 16-202 in the code, the parking regulations, requires 1 parking space per bedroom with 1 additional space for every 4 units for other purposes, for a total of 13 parking spaces. The narrative includes an anticipated development timeline. That is, if the planning commission, would recommend them to move forward, but they'd have to come back for their final. So they were looking to try to ground break in fall 2020. We'll see if that's something that would be in keeping, depending on having, other materials and following through on the final PUD. They'd be looking at completing the project in 2021 if all things go well. The density increase does require 5 conditions. The conditions are that the application is run as a planned unit development. So that is why you are seeing the stage of the preliminary planned unit development. That is a requirement. They do need at least 8,000 square feet of the parcel area. They have 11,761. They qualify for that. They do require 25% of the total parcel to be landscaped open space, which does not include parking. So they cannot include any parking areas. And then they also, the other 2 aspects, they basically come into play more at building with respect to if they're, the engineering review and other things. And so they may not come in sort of the land use aspect, but of course, as part of a preliminary and a final agreement, they have to meet those conditions. So they would, that you could add those as they need to make sure that any engineering is done and all those things. And then that would come at the construction phase. This application was publicly noticed, I think, 3 times, because they were originally going to come in March. They opted to, we didn't have the ability to do electronic meetings, virtual meetings, I think, at that point. So we didn't have a March meeting. And they were going to come in April, and then they decided to redevelop the lot differently and remove that existing unit to make it a little bit easier to redevelop. And so they're coming for the first time, but we have done public noticing in the newspaper, on the site, and to the property owners in the surrounding area. I do want to take some responsibility for a minor mistake that I made on page 4 of the analysis, where I made a confusing statement, and I sent a message to the Planning Commission and noted that I had forgot to change it from the last one that I created, where it still included just a line of text that said something about the existing building that was going to be retained there. That's not true. That was my mistake. I did fix that in what is online. However, I just want to note that that was my error. So if that confused anyone, I apologize for your confusion. I did that, and I apologize. This is a proposal to create total of 4 residential units in 2 duplexes that will be 2 stories. The existing building on the property is intended to be demolished. So I can answer any other questions you may have that the Planning Commission may have of me, if you have any.
Oh, okay. If we have questions now, or we could wait and have, do you have questions on the actual presentation from staff? That would be appropriate to speak now, or we could hear from the applicant and then bring up all our questions at that time. Is there any questions, though, of actually a staff and the things that Cynthia has spoken to?
No.
Who's speaking?
Linda.
Linda, any questions?
Not at this point. After the review from the applicant.
Okay. Well, then I will give Dennis and Ellen the floor. If you want to summarize your project, we certainly have, all the information. You know what we have. We have all the drawings and the prints and the plans. So if you just want to go ahead and give us a quick review of your intentions and your development.
Okay, that sounds good. This is Dennis that's talking, and as you can see, we're planning on developing that lot for housing, and we're looking at 2 duplexes. We've tossed some ideas around about how to arrange the buildings and which way to face them, thinking that maybe we even could have saved Little Bear School because of the historic. We looked at it as a historic value, just on the history of it, and it just did not fit the development very well. Also, we had to modify and take that, and it looks like we're going to be demoing that building. So as you can see, as that one you just scrolled through, we got we look like we may be facing west. We figured that's the best view. That's going to be more desirable for the housing for the tenants and residents. And
That's just an idea.
so, but that's still like in the preliminary. So we might be able to adjust something a little bit after that. And so I think we got enough space on that land to do what we want to do and allow for snow removal and places to put the snow and the drainage that's going to be required when we develop it, and because it looks like our run is downhill anyway toward the reservoir, and so that's kind of basically what we're looking at right now.
Were there any questions for us?
So did I come through loud and clear?
Yeah, why don't let's just see, before we come back to the board, let's see if there's other people from the public that would like to speak now. So we'll open the public hearing. And is there anybody out there that wants to speak to this development? Do we have? Staff, do you see anybody that, are we aware of anybody that can speak to this?
I just unmuted all the members of the public, so if any of them want to say anything, they are all unmuted.
So, are we okay, staff, to close the public portion of the?
Oh, sorry. I apologize. My mic was muted. Yes, I do know that Bert Marchio from the public had was joining us, and his son Chris had reached out to me with concerns. So he may want to present some.
So, Bert, if you're there, this is your opportunity to speak at the public hearing.
Okay, I'm here.
I just want to clarify really quick, Bert, that we have 3 minutes for public comment. So if you could be succinct.
Okay, then I'll since Chris has submitted his concerns, I'll leave it with that.
You're absolutely willing to speak. I don't mean to cut you off or anything like that. It's just this is a bit of a, it's a bit different with the virtual. But if there's any questions that you may have that you want to ask the applicants now that they could elaborate, please feel free.
So on your diagrams, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
How do the houses or the duplexes sit as it relates to Peak Highway?
The duplexes, as we were looking at the preliminary, they face west. And the backs of the buildings where the garages are face east toward the brewery.
Okay.
At this preliminary stage, that's
the way we were thinking about it right now. Yeah.
Our final one is due with the next. It's the checklist for the next meeting. But tentatively, that is the layout at this point.
Hi, I don't know. Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Was that heard? This is Chris, so Bert's son and the neighbor from 9 Degree Brewing Company. I'm on the phone. I just want to say I missed everything because I spent about a half an hour trying to get the app, but my computer needs a new updating system, and it was a whole thing. So, quite difficult to get into a public meeting here. But can I make a comment just based off of reviewing the plan?
Sure.
Yeah, Chris.
So, hearing you say that the garages were going to face towards our location at 250 North Caribou is a little just surprising. Looking at the 5-page kind of like little diagram with computer images that you guys submitted, I would think that it would be facing north and have the garages facing south. And I just want to clarify, although, just any kind of development in Nederland, as I know, neighbors will have some concerns, but my only main comment was just really lack of detail and lack of measurements and things like that. And I'm sorry if you guys kind of pointed that out during the earlier stages in the meeting, but I would just like to see more detail. So that's all. I just wanted to comment that.
Yeah, that's coming up with the next
That's
submittal.
in the final plan. That's when that's due.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, maybe we could just touch base and just kind of get a little bit more of a walkthrough in person. But I'm certainly not opposed to the development in any way. I just want to know a little bit more what's going on. So I just think, as a community, we need to know more too. So if there's any way to present it before the final meeting so we can all know what's happening, and I know things take time, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll have this stuff submitted to where people can look at it, in time for the next meeting, I'm sure.
Cynthia's great about having our checklists and when we need to have things done. So I'm sure she'll keep us on the right path with getting all the, the lighting plan and the drainage plan. There's a lot of different plans on the checklist that we'll be submitting with the next, at the next phase. But we're very excited to be located next to the brewery. We think that's great for our development. And so we're looking forward to working with the community and with the town.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Hi, can you hear me?
Who's speaking?
My name is Mike Reichert. I live at 508 West 3rd Street.
Oh,
Go ahead
and speak.
Okay. I just learned of this yesterday. Just had a quick question. I know everything's preliminary, but guesstimate how all these buildings will sit. Because I was looking today, and I can just barely see the Little Bear School's roof line from kind of my yard, and I was just curious how high these things might stand. Thank you.
The code limit, I think, is 35 feet.
Yeah.
They're definitely going to be within the code.
Yeah, they allow 35 feet maximum height, and I think we're coming in at 32. Since it's a 2-story building we're looking at, to get the type of residential we wanted to provide, we had to went 2-story. And so, yeah, it's going to be taller than the Little Bear. That's one reason why the Little Bear was not going to work out on the property, because these two duplexes would really make that Little Bear look goofy, and it just looked too unplanned like that.
There were other issues as well. We could have tied the styles together externally, but there were just other considerations. One mainly being the odd location, or the location of Little Bear where it sits on the lot. It's
like right up against the property line.
Exactly, and to allow spaces and so forth, it was just not as workable as we originally thought it would be.
And
thank you.
The name was Mike. Mike, where are you?
Third.
Yeah. So I live right on the corner of the Peak to Peak Highway and 3rd Street. So the greenhouse.
Oh, like your fence, yes.
He's a block from you guys.
Yeah.
Right across the street from Smyrna Village?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I wanna point something out while we have the screen up. See these two buildings, and it shows that there's 8 feet apart. I have spoken with the Bullions and let them know that in the code, section 16-75 requires that principal buildings be 10 feet apart. And we talked about that when they submitted these drawings to me, and I asked if they'd like to change those or just speak to it, and that they would adhere to the 10-foot separation distance, and they said they would just speak to it. So when they come back, we will note that that's 10 feet apart and not 8 feet. But I wanted to make a quick note of that.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. We talked about that. We knew that we'd have to make that 10-foot separation.
Before we go any further, I just want to make sure that we have all the public comment that we were going to get. So if there's anyone else who is calling in from the public who wanted to speak, they have that opportunity before we move forward in the meeting. Anyone?
Okay, well then, if there's no other comments from the public, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. I'll bring it back to the Planning Commission. So you had questions. Linda, you spoke that you would have some questions then. So let's start with Linda.
Yeah, I have a question on with the state highway running in front, and if the units are going to be facing the state highway, is there a setback from the CDOT as to where the buildings would be sitting?
Well, CDOT, the property line is the edge of the right-of-way. CDOT doesn't have a right-of-way setback from their right-of-way. Technically, you can go right up to the edge of their right-of-way with the proposal, but the town has their setbacks on property line. So we're not. So there's a 35-foot easement along the highway there that we're not going to be in, plus the setback that's required by the town. So it is. Okay. So we're probably going to be like 45, 50 feet off the highway.
Setback from the highway.
Yeah.
And then how close on the east side would the unit set next to the brewery?
That's a 30-foot setback on that side, the property line, on that east property line.
There's the same setback on that. So in the parking area,
land, you have that, right?
That's just.
Would there be any type of facility in back for trash and stuff like that would be sitting closer to the brewery?
The next proposal, we have to submit where we're going to put the trash receptacles and things like that. And then we're going to probably build an enclosure similar to what the Tungsten Village built. They built an enclosure to put their dumpsters and stuff in. And so we'll probably have something like that.
And another question on the traffic flow, and I think you said a little bit about it, but as they would be parking on the east side of the unit, would the traffic flow be going onto 3rd Street, or would it be going onto 4th Street up onto the highway?
Right. The access to the property is 4th Street. So everybody comes and goes off of 4th Street into the property. Okay. Kind of like Little Bear was set up, the way the daycare was set up. It was like the same way.
Right. There'll be a fence around. We envision that, and then the entrance is going to be off of 4th.
The entrance would be off of 4th. Okay. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And as far as there are, I'm sure, studies on the runoff for the water. Is there going to be any pavement on there? The water does run down to the lake, but it has to pass through town first.
Right. Yeah, there's a couple of ditches that we have to. Right. There's ditches that we have to channel our runoff to. There won't be any asphalt driveways. It'll probably mostly gravel and and rock.
Pervious material.
Yeah, pervious, all kind of pervious material, and so we don't create any kind of major runoff. And then the downspouts off the buildings will be channeled to the ditches.
Okay. All right, that's all I have right now.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Should we go to Billy? Did you have some comments?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Roger. You just answered one of them. I was wondering where the entrance is going to be. So it's off 4th from the north. When I look at these, I saw Chris's comments today, and I can surmise enough. There's actual dimensions there, and from that you can kind of use that to scale. But what I can't figure out, like me, is how you're going to get that 25% open space. Those cars have to drive around somewhere, and I just don't. Especially if the building's going to be a couple feet farther apart, and you're already pushing that 3 foot 8 inches on that little northwest corner of the north building. I just don't know how you're going to come up with that 25%. Or would you please tell us where that's going to be?
Well, just from the hard,
from the math right
from the
there.
hardscape that we're going to be using up with the building footprint and the driveway and the car parking, tallied up to, I don't know, let's see. Let me see where that. Now, it tallied up to percentages to allow, to give us enough, 25%, to give us enough that, I think it's like 2,940 square feet for the landscape area. Now, how we're going to do the landscape area is still, but there's enough space there to do it. Now, where it's going to go, and if we're going to have yards or picnic tables, those things have not been determined yet. But we do have enough space on that lot to get the 25%. Otherwise, we kind of beating ourselves. Banging our heads against the wall.
Well, I believe you have it, but when I look where all those cars go, to me, Chris's comment about not enough detail and dimensions, that's kind of the glaring thing. It's like I don't see where parking and walkways are open space. So I'm assuming
that's actually in section 16-155, which is for the next. So it may have been adding to confusion. We kind of wanted to give conceptual ideas for this, and maybe we're a little early with that. But the cars are not to scale. It's not in that parking plan. We did, throw in.
But the car, we're allowed 100 square feet per vehicle. So that's 1,300 square feet right there. And then we allowed 1,000 square feet for driveway. And so that's so we subtracted all of that out of the area of the lot, left us with 6,000 square feet. And of that 6,000, there's 2,900 of that will be used for the open space. So there's still a little bit of flexibility. The open space is probably going to be maybe bigger, I don't know, but I know we have still a little extra area in that lot to meet our requirements.
And I think all of those questions really will become more clear at the next meeting when we have to have all our final dimensions and, the parking plan is due next time and et cetera. So.
Okay, yeah. To me, that would be a detail that would have to be quite a bit more clear because those vehicles got to move around, and actually the scale of those is probably not too far off, to be honest. And then the only other, it looks like I saw utilities look like they'll be fine from what Chris said in the town. That 3 foot 8 inch. Is that an issue? 3 feet 8 inch here on the northwest side. Is that enough space? What is that little dog-leg property that sticks in there?
That's part of the state highway right of way, and there's a couple of ways we were trying to handle that. We were trying to buy it back from the state highway department, and so we'd have a better, a lot would have that little notch knocked out of it. But they kind of pushed back, and they didn't want to fool with the process. And so at this point, we have not come to terms on getting that notch back. And so there's other ways of getting a utility permit, or an easement permit from them. What was it called?
It's called a special use permit
Special
with
use permit. And they said
CDOT,
you get a special use permit, you can do anything on the property. And they kind of like say, well, this would even be better because you don't have to buy it. You get to use it without buying it.
Right, and they said they have it. They give them many times. You can pave it, put parking. We wouldn't pave it, but
they said you can park on it. If you get
right.
a special use permit, you can park on it.
So we're pursuing that, but
anyway, that frees up a little more space. But but that goofy corner right there is really
CDOT doesn't know why it was taken. Like back in the 50s, they didn't have any records of why they took it, why they thought they might need it. And out of 10 departments that reviewed our requests to buy it, one department just thought it would be better to hang on to it. So that was why we couldn't buy it.
Okay, cool. And then I noted, at least on the plan, that you had as a 27 feet 5 inches for the height of the building. And then I'll ask you this, and Cynthia, Roger, let me know if this is inappropriate. I'm just curious if any of those are affordable, low income, or below market, or is that just not in our wheelhouse anyways?
Well, yeah, right now we're not looking at affordable housing type setup. So we haven't considered. So we thought about it, but we haven't. Right now, that's not what we're looking at building. Putting together.
Market rate. Okay.
Yeah, market rate. Right.
It's a good question, but it's not a required issue. Maybe staff can weigh in on that.
Yeah, I mean, as for investment, it just didn't make sense right off the bat.
So I would just say that if an applicant comes and says, part of my proposal is to create affordable housing or below market housing, then we would want to see that. And I think that would be a relevant component. And then it could be included in an agreement that that's what they were going to, that's what was their intention. And then they would have to follow that up with a certain AMI and things like that. If the applicants are saying we're not trying to provide these as affordable or below market rate, then I wouldn't think it would be a consideration. But it's it's worthy of asking. You can always ask.
Thanks for answering my questions.
Thank you.
The camera got better.
Okay, then, so if that's what Billy has with Delinda, is Chris Prayer? Chris, are you there? What are your comments, Chris? And then we'll do Stephanie.
A few comments. One, have they lived in Netherlands and know how the wind rolls around here?
Dennis Nellen, can you hear him? He's on a different phone.
Can you hear me?
His question was, do you live or have you lived in Netherlands to understand kind of the wind and how it blows around?
Yes, I think. Did you ask if we've lived in Netherlands and understand that there's a lot of wind?
Yeah, and I guess, Chris, that's in essence your question. Yes.
Oh yeah. When I skied Eldor, first started skiing Eldor in 1982, and the wind was like horrendous up there. We all was kidded that the word Eldor comes from this Swedish word high winds, and so yeah, we're very familiar with the wind. We live south of town on Peak to Peak, and so we get a few trees blowing over on our property every now and then.
We got really used to wind in New Orleans too, so.
Oh yeah, during hurricane season.
Chris, what was your second question?
Okay, the other question was probably a question for Chris. Is there going to be 4 individual PIFs for the building?
Did you hear that? Maybe said that. Are there going to be 4 individual PIFs for the buildings?
4 individual what?
PIFs?
No. Based on what?
Well, plant improvement.
Yes.
Us.
No, we have an existing meter and tap, sewer and water from the Little Bear. So we're going to be putting one more in there.
So just as a clarification from staff, we would look at their utility plan and determine what tap size would be needed. So if they have to upgrade the tap size from the old Little Bear building to accommodate, and that may be possible. I don't know if they would. But then there are all, any associated PIFs or upgrades and things like that. And then there is a multi-family unit by square footage or bedroom fee that we would include too. So we'll definitely get the utilities for it. And a lot of that would come with their utility plan at the final to determine what tap size would we be looking at to serve those units.
Right.
Does that help, Chris?
Yes.
Yes. Do you have other questions, Chris?
And my last question is, how many square feet are each building?
How many square feet are each building?
Approximately 15, but again, that is due at the next meeting. So we're saying approximately now as a ballpark.
To get to the 3-bedroom with the garage is about 1,500 square foot, like 8 and 8 or 7.5 and 7.5, first floor, second floor.
That's per unit?
Is that per unit?
Could you clarify that again? The footprints will be what?
Well, the footprints of each building is 20 by 44, and I think it's 20 by 25, something like that. And then and each unit's like 1,500 square feet, so it's like 7 on the bottom, 7 on the top, 7.5.
It's a little different because the bottom has the garage and that's not living space. So we don't have the exact divisions per floor, but the living more or less approximately is 15.
Did y'all get that?
Chris,
Okay.
do you have other questions, Chris?
Not at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Chris is done at the moment.
Thank you.
All right then, Stephanie, are you there, Stephanie? If Chris is done.
I am, and I'm trying to hide from my children. So we'll see how long I last. So a lot of my questions that I had notes on here actually got asked. The PIF fees was one I was particularly interested in. And so I know it's probably not relevant for this time, but next time it would be good to have an answer on that one and know whether the town has any, I guess that would be Chris, has any, thoughts on that one.
Yeah, Miss Stephanie, I met with Chris Pelletier out there, and so we talked about it, and my engineer's first calculation is a 1-inch tap would take care of 2 units, and so we already have a 1-inch tap on the old Little Bears, so another 1-inch tap would take care of 2 more units, and then we'd split those up into each unit having their own meter, but then we're looking at having to do one more tap.
Again, we'll have all those final numbers at the next presentation.
Okay. I mean, it's not, Cynthia, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like for this particular round, we're reviewing and seeing if we think it should move forward. And at this point, with the level of detail that we have, I think it's appropriate to move forward to the next phase where we would have the final plans that we could actually take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the requirements for the preliminary versus the final, there's a lot more that comes at the final end. Although I would say, it's always nice to front load applications if you can, because it kind of makes it easier to move through the process. So that way, you're not going to get to final and then have a million things to do. But it's, what you are required to present is the adjacent land uses, the boundary and size of site, the existing topographic character of the land, the proposed land uses, their respective acreage, the character of the proposed development and proposed number of dwelling units, the location of proposed streets and bicycle paths, the location and size of proposed public and semi-public uses, dedicated and other. So this is where the G, that's where this open space is going to be is pretty important, because it's telling you at the preliminary phase that if there's proposed public and semi-public uses, which is a common thing with subdivisions, when you do subdivisions, there's actually land dedications. The preliminary PUD using the density increase requires open space. So they're a bit different, but they often go hand in hand. And so that's an important thing to really understand where that is. Areas of potential hazard, such as the 100-year floodplain, which is to the north of them, rock slides, subsidence, similar hazards, and then a written statement explaining the character of the planned unit development, the manner that it's taken into account, the planned unit development regs, a statement from the present ownership and the legal description, general indication of anticipated schedule, and other information. So with respect to, they have a good majority of these items. And when you look at the final, it's everything else. So that can often be a really, really large review. And this is an opportunity, if the Planning Commission is seeing issues, to point them out, to point these folks in the right direction. If you feel you have enough information to make the determination if these folks should move forward. Now, within the purview's planning, the Planning Commission's purview is to say, okay, we have enough information to say, yes, you can move forward, and we would give you the go-ahead, and you could make a recommendation to move forward toward the final phase. As I open the meeting, you could say, no, we don't have enough information, and decide this information is so pertinent, we're going to have to continue this application to the next month to get more information, or no, this is totally not meeting the code and we're turning it down. So, probably we're in more of the first two than the last one of completely turning it down. The areas that I would say would be necessary and beneficial to understand would be that open space component, to really understand, do they meet this density increase requirement? Because the density increase, they bought the land, they own the property, but they certainly want to be able to increase the density on the parcel. As it stands at 11,761 square feet in the neighborhood commercial district, which requires 4,000 square foot, just the district, they could have 2 units max. So that density increase is wonderful, because they could have up to 5 and they want to do 4. But I do think it's really, really pertinent to understand, can they meet this requirement? And, so are you able to answer that question so that you guys can say, yeah, go forward, we feel like you meet this? I'm not sure. And there is an ability to...
Can I say, are you going to mention about the code and the language in the code that says that you can make a donation, you can make a financial contribution to the town in lieu of all or a portion of that land? I just think you should mention that is in code, and that's something similar that happened with Tungsten Village, where in lieu of having that public open space, they actually made a payment to the town. And so
that's a good thing, Karen. I think you should speak to that, because I wasn't involved in the final approval of Tungsten. So
I'm just mentioning it because as they go deeper into this process and they work with town, we'll be helping them look at some of their different options and working with them through the code. So as far as that requirement for open space, there may be a way, if they can't get right to 25%, that they might have an option to make a payment towards, in lieu of public lands. So I just wanted to mention that.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah, that's good to know. I know other municipalities do allow some of that also. So that's good to know that Netherlands does that also.
And then I would ask you a clarifying question, Karen. I presume that was done at the Board of Trustees. So their final, it went through the Planning Commission, because
the way I remember it is that it came up at the Planning Commission with the understanding that it would have to be approved by the Board of Trustees. So I do think that the Planning Commission was aware that that was an option that they would need to exercise in order to meet that criteria.
You make a really good point, Karen. Thank you. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good option to know about.
I'm not, was that Karen speaking or Miranda speaking?
That was Karen.
Okay, well, let's just put that on hold and research that because, yeah, that's, Steve and I are raising question marks on it. So maybe staff will give us a report on that because I think the biggest part of that, my memory was there was right of way in streets, and part of that was giving back the streets was part of the thing. So we'll just leave that for clarification as one of the items that needs to be clarified. Well, I thought that in the past, everything with the